Singapore is one of the richest countries on Earth. Its salaries are among the highest in Asia. Its infrastructure is world-class. Its passport is extraordinarily powerful. So here's the question that sounds completely backwards. Why are Singaporeans looking across a 4-kilometer border into Malaysia to buy homes, shop, invest, and sometimes even live? Because something unusual is happening between Singapore and Johor Bahru. And when the 5-minute RTS link begins passenger service, that relationship could change dramatically. Singapore has the best passport on Earth, the busiest, most efficient airport on the planet, a subway system so clean you could eat off the floor, and people basically do. By every metric that exists, Singapore is winning. So why are thousands of its own citizens quietly checking real estate listings? Other side of the border? Not tourists, not backpackers, actual Singaporeans, with Singapore salaries, Singapore passports, Singapore success, looking 4 kilometers north into Malaysia. This isn't a story about a country failing. Singapore hasn't failed at anything. This is a story about the one thing a perfect system still can't buy you, and the neighbor next door that's suddenly selling it, cheap. Stick with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why one of the richest nations on Earth is watching its own people vote with their feet, and where they're going. The hallway between 2 rooms. Here's what most people outside Southeast Asia don't understand. Singapore and the Malaysian city of Johor Bahru aren't really 2 separate countries. They're closer to 2 rooms in the same house, connected by one very crowded hallway. Every single day, roughly index equals 2 Malaysian 1,300,000 people cross between Singapore and Johor Bahru. Not once a year, not on holiday. Daily, some for work, some for cheaper groceries, some just for a haircut that costs a third of the price back home. That hallway is a causeway, and right now, it's brutal. A car crossing at peak hour can burn over an hour stuck in traffic, sometimes closer to 2, just to cross a gap you could throw a football across. But that hallway is getting demolished and rebuilt as a 5-minute train. It's called the RTS Link, a brand new cross-border railway connecting Woodlands North in Singapore straight into Bukit Chagar in Johor Bahru. Site index equals 7-1. It's a bilateral project between Singapore and Malaysia, designed to ease congestion, improve connectivity, and generate shared economic benefits. And here's the detail that changes everything. Passengers clear both countries' immigration before they even board. No second checkpoint waiting on the other side. Site index equals 3-1. At launch, it's expected to carry around 40,000 passengers a day, with that number projected to climb toward 140,000 over time. Life isn't about 3-1, potentially absorbing 30 to 40% of all current causeway traffic. Translation: a trip that eats your entire Saturday morning is about to become shorter than your commute to the office. So what happens to a relationship between 2 cities once the wall between them turns into a 5-minute subway ride? Quick pause. If this is your first time on the channel, this is what we do. We go inside the real economics of Southeast Asia. No tourist brochure spin. Hit subscribe now, because what's coming in the next section is the part nobody expects. The math that breaks people's brains. Everyone's first guess for why this is happening is simple. Malaysia is cheaper. True, but that's the boring answer, and it misses the actual mechanism. Here's the real question. What happens when someone earning a Singapore salary, in Singapore dollars, spends that money on the Malaysian side of a border? The Singapore dollar currently trades for roughly 3 Malaysian ringgit. That's not pocket change. That means a Singaporean's everyday income lands in Johor Bahru with nearly 3 times the buying power it has back home. A hawker meal that costs 20 Singapore dollars at home can cost a fraction of that the second you cross the bridge. A haircut, a dental visit, a tank of petrol, a weekend of groceries. The gap compounds, and it compounds in the buyer's favor every single time. It's not that the Singapore dollar is worth more in Malaysia, it's that it walks across that bridge and comes back feeling like it just got promoted. This is why Johor Bahru's malls, clinics, and restaurants aren't just filled with Malaysians anymore. On weekends, huge chunks of their customers are people who earn Singapore paychecks and spend like locals. A combination Singapore itself structurally cannot offer its own citizens, because Singapore's prices are set by Singapore's economy. But the sticker price gap is just the appetizer. The real story is underneath it. The city that used to be a punchline. If this story has a main character, it's not Malaysia as some vague, abstract idea. It's one specific city, Johor Bahru, close enough that on a clear day, you can see Singapore's skyline from a rooftop bar there. Johor Bahru used to have a reputation, and it wasn't flattering. A pass-through town, somewhere you drove through, not somewhere you chose. That reputation is dying fast, and Johor Bahru would very much like everyone to stop bringing up how it used to look 20 years ago. New waterfront residential towers, international schools, global hospitality brands moving in, all of it chasing exactly the cross-border customer we've been talking about. And this isn't happening by accident. There's a formal agreement between the two governments, the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, specifically built to deepen this cross-border relationship, easier movement of business, talent, and investment across that 4-kilometer stretch of water. That's not a marketing slogan. That's two national governments putting it in writing that this relationship is worth building infrastructure around. Add the 5-minute train into that picture, and Johor Bahru stops being the place near Singapore. It starts becoming something closer to an extended suburb of it, minus Singapore's price tag. Think about what that shift actually does to two cities. Cut a commute from over an hour down to 5 minutes, with immigration cleared before you even board, and Johor Bahru stops being a trip. It becomes a commute. That single distinction, trip versus commute, might be the biggest shift happening on either side of that water. So what does a country do once its most livable suburb isn't technically inside its own borders anymore? And if you enjoy stories that go beyond the usual tourist version of Southeast Asia, subscribe to Nomad Quest. Because this isn't just a story about cheap property. It's a story about what happens when two completely different economies become connected so closely that the border itself starts becoming less important. What money can't buy in a city this small. If the story stopped at Malaysia is cheaper, it would be a pretty forgettable video. But price is not the whole story. And treating it like the whole story misses what's actually pulling people across that bridge. Singapore is, by nearly every measure, one of the most efficiently run cities on the planet. But that efficiency has a cost that never shows up on a bank statement: space. Singapore packs close to 6 million people into roughly 730 square kilometers. That density is exactly why apartments are compact, why green space is meticulously rationed rather than sprawling, and why weekends often mean queuing for brunch, for parking, for a patch of beach. A 450 square foot flat gets called cozy in the listing. That's real estate speak, for you will learn your neighbor's Wi-Fi password, whether you want to or not. Johor Bahru offers the things Singapore's density structurally cannot: room to breathe. Bigger homes for the same money. Weekend escapes. Beaches, hill resorts, national parks. Within a few hours' drive, no flight required. So the real question underneath all of this isn't, what does Malaysia offer that's cheap? It's, what does Singapore's efficiency quietly force its own citizens to sacrifice? And how much is that sacrifice actually costing them, even when it never shows up on a receipt? Some numbers that get dramatic. Let's get precise instead of sensational, because this next part is where people's jaws actually drop. A resale flat in Singapore's public housing system, the kind most Singaporeans actually live in, regularly trades well into 6 figures in Singapore dollars, even outside the priciest districts. Private condos push that number far higher. Cross the water, and a genuinely nice condominium in Johor Bahru, not a bargain bin unit, a solidly comfortable one with a pool, sometimes two, because apparently one pool is no longer considered a personality, can run around 1.5 million ringgit. Convert that, and you land at roughly $440,000 Singapore dollars. Let that sink in. A proper condo across the bridge can cost less than a resale flat back home. Rental returns tell the same story. Private property in Singapore typically yields somewhere around 2.5% to 3.5% gross. Well-located Johor Bahru condos, especially near that new train station, are running closer to 4.5% to 6%, and that's before you even factor in the lower entry price. Now, a responsible telling of this has to include the fine print, because there is real fine print. As of January 2026, foreign buyers in Malaysia, Singaporeans included, site index equals 12-1, pay a flat 8% stamp duty on residential property purchases. Site index equals 12-1, double what it was before. Site index 18-2026. On top of that, non-resident foreign owners pay a flat 30% tax on gross rental income from day one. No progressive scale, no easing in. And SOID index equals 15-1. The ringgit itself carries currency risk. It's swung between roughly 2.9 and 3.5 to the Singapore dollar over the past decade, meaning a weaker ringgit later could quietly eat into your entire yield. This is a real opportunity, but it comes with real taxes, real currency risk, and a genuine need for proper legal advice before anyone signs anything. Buying across a border isn't a cheat code. It's a different game with its own rulebook. So knowing all that, the tax bill, the currency risk, the fine print, are people still making the move? That's the part almost nobody tells straight. Second reminder, if you're finding this useful, subscribing genuinely helps this channel keep making deep dive breakdowns like this one instead of recycled headlines. It costs nothing and takes 2 seconds. Now, back to the story. Nobody is actually leaving. Here's the twist. Most surface-level retellings completely miss. Almost nobody in this story is abandoning Singapore. It's not a binary, it's a spectrum. And most Singaporeans engaging with Johor Bahru sit somewhere in the middle of it. Some are simply weekend visitors, cross for the shopping and the food, home by Sunday night. Some spend regularly without ever staying overnight, treating the border the way someone in one city might treat a cheaper neighborhood a short drive away. Some are buying property purely as an investment, chasing that yield gap, never intending to live there at all. Some are genuinely commuting, living in Johor Bahru, working a Singapore job, a pattern that new 5-minute train is built specifically to unlock. And a smaller group is going further still, treating Malaysia as a genuine part-time or eventual full-time base. Singapore for the paycheck, Malaysia for the life. Ask 10 Singaporeans where they fall on that spectrum, and you'll get 11 different answers, most starting with, well, it's complicated. What's actually shifting isn't loyalty. It's the line itself. The line between living in Singapore and living in Malaysia is getting blurrier. Not because Singapore is losing, but because people are realizing they don't have to pick one side of that line anymore. The bigger picture. Zoom all the way out. And this was never really Singapore versus Malaysia. It's two economies with completely different strengths, becoming more tightly stitched together than ever before. Singapore brings global finance, world-class infrastructure, and some of the highest salaries in Asia. Malaysia brings space, natural resources, a dramatically lower cost structure, and cities, Kuala Lumpur, Johor Bahru, Penang, developing at a pace that keeps catching people off guard. Singapore brings the paycheck. Malaysia brings the square footage. Together, they're an unlikely but oddly functional pairing, and a growing number of people are learning to run both playbooks at once. Singapore-level earning power, paired with Malaysia-level living costs, connected by a border about to shrink from an hour wide to 5 minutes wide. Singapore gets an overflow valve for a population squeezed into a small footprint, without needing to build upward or outward in ways that would strain its own systems. Malaysia gets sustained investment, a steady stream of high-spending visitors and buyers, and a legitimate case for its own rising status on the world stage. Neither side actually loses. In cross-border relationships, that's rare enough to be worth pointing out on its own. The alien question. Picture explaining this to an alien who just landed on Earth. So there's a border. On one side, apartments cost a fortune and are the size of a parking space. On the other side, 30 minutes away, the same money buys you a pool, 2 pools sometimes. The alien would take one look at the map and ask why anyone stayed on the expensive side in the first place, right before booking a one-way ticket on the 5-minute train itself. So why are Singaporeans really looking across that water? Not because Singapore stopped succeeding. It's still, by nearly every global measure, one of the best-run, most prosperous places on Earth. It's because Johor Bahru finally became good enough, fast enough, that ignoring it stopped making sense. Johor Bahru, watching Singaporeans quietly refresh property listings after 2 decades of being overlooked, has exactly one thing to say. Oh, now you notice me. If you had a Singapore salary, would you actually make the move, or is Singapore worth the premium? Drop a comment. Crossing. If you'd take the space and the yield, or staying. If efficiency wins every time, let's see which side wins the comment section.